Thank you for joining us today. I would like to introduce to you Nicole Healy. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Erin. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
No, well, I'm from Australia and I'm a wife, a mum, a daughter, a sister, play all those different roles, but I'm also a trauma-informed holistic and somatic therapist and work with people who have a loved one living with addiction. Um, for me, it's been a huge role that has really shifted my life, and I feel so grateful to be able to support people this way. Living in Australia, there is a lot of different elements around healing and therapy, but I feel like this, for me, has been a big step in moving towards that holistic side, which has been extremely beneficial on a personal level for myself and my family. So I'm also a mum with three young adults and happily married for 30 years now. So that's pretty amazing.
Well, 30 years. That's a long time.
It is a long time.
That's amazing. My parents have been married 43 years. So that's a long time too. You don't always hear about people being married for so long, but it's really nice when you do.
Yeah, and it's I think too, it's not an easy journey to take, obviously, but we've been together since we were teenagers, so it's more than half of my life, but it's been incredible as well as challenging. But I think just celebrating wherever we are in life is amazing. But yeah, 30 years was a big milestone.
That is huge. So that's a blessing. We're we're here to talk about trauma. Have you ever experienced trauma in your life?
The biggest trauma that comes to mind is going back 11 years ago when my husband attempted to end his life. And we then discovered that he had a really heavy gambling addiction, which anyone that knows about gambling addiction would know that suicide and gambling addiction go together extremely dramatically. Well, if we're honest, it's probably one of the lead causes of suicide in men is having a gambling addiction. Um, and I didn't even realize it was going on. So it came as a huge shock. Um, I can speak into the story if you like about the day that it all happened. Um, and I remember it vividly. It was a Tuesday morning and getting up and having a text message from my husband saying there's something in the car for you, and going out to my car and finding this plastic bag with four envelopes. And I still remember the way that my heart felt. It was like this, oh, something in the car excitement to that extreme dread. And I know that we would all recognize that when you know that something is really bad is about to happen or has happened. Um, and I don't recall a lot in the next probably half an hour, but all of a sudden my kids are in my bedroom and we're opening these letters, and I just remember being in this huge amount of shock. Like, I can't even really remember the letter, but ringing the police, ringing a few people to go, do you know where he is, trying to find him. Um, and my kids at the time was 16, 14 and 9, so two girls and a boy. So for the four of us, trying to get in contact with him and get him home was absolute chaos. And luckily we did. We did end up getting him home, and then we had police and an ambulance waiting who took him away straight away, pretty much. We didn't really get to see him. But that to me is nearly like I think of my life in two parts. So there's nearly this version of me that existed up until that point when I was 39, and then this other version of me that existed after that. And it does feel like two separate lives. And not just because of the way trauma shaped me, but I now, even after all the healing work I've done, I'm not the same person. Because I think sometimes we think when I heal, I'll refine myself. But my experience with healing has been finding the real version of myself, not the version that I thought was going along in life okay until this huge event, but this version that is really me without all the conditioning and everything else that we know plays out in our lives. And I think too, for me, it's really hard to go through something so big when it's not just about you, because obviously I had 3 young children to care for as well. And the support here for mental health, it's okay. Like, it's not as bad as other places in the world. And we were really lucky for him that he was taken straight away to a hospital, and then he was taken to a psych ward, and he was there for 2 weeks before he went to a rehab place for 4 weeks. And that was all, like, we didn't pay anything for all that. It's all covered with government and what they offer. I'm not sure that's still the case now, but we're very lucky that it was then. But the thing that was really hard was getting support from my children. And after all this happened, that I thought, oh, I probably should get some support for me. Mum's come a distant last a lot of the time. But I had to do something because I was vomiting every day and I was having major panic attacks. And I felt like I had left my body. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that or if you can understand that, Erin, but it
I can
was
understand.
nearly like, yeah, like, because 2 days after my husband attempted to take his life, my best friend was murdered. So I had the homicide police knock on my door on the Thursday night, and I didn't know. And I was meant to catch up with her that day, and I had to postpone it because I had to go and speak to doctors and, trying to get my husband support and being all over that. And I had spoken to her in the morning, and then an intruder had come in and taken her life. So I had homicide come, and I remember sitting in my lounge room and actually feeling like I left my body and watching what was going on from above.
Because it'd be
Just
shock,
in complete,
just
yeah,
observing.
yeah. It's like, it really is like, isn't it? We can't take any more. Literally full of all these big, heavy emotions of the trauma. So we leave to survive. And I felt, for me, it took me probably, I thought maybe a month to come back into myself properly, but now knowing what I know, it was probably a good 6 to 12 months really till I felt that I guess my soul was tethered back in my body, because it felt like I was just get through each day. What do I have to do today, and just get through, but not really living it, not feeling embodied in it, feeling so disconnected. And it is just a form of survival. So for us as a family, obviously, it's been quite a journey. Um, and for anyone listening that has a loved one in addiction, there is hope. My husband has been like free from gambling now for around 6 years. It probably was something that he, obviously was very heavy into it. We nearly lost our home. There was a lot of fallout from it. But to him now, going gambling doesn't even enter his mind is phenomenal. And that is the power of
That's
healing and
amazing.
connection and support. Yeah. Yeah. So there is always hope. There is always hope.
And how did the healing affect your nervous system?
For me, it really was, I guess I had this turning point and I just thought I can't continue to do this. And it was probably 12 to 18 months after everything had happened. And I remember standing in my kitchen and I had a letter from the bank. Back then we used to get letters, not emails or whatever. And having a full-blown panic attack holding this letter, think I can't open it. What if we've got no money left? What if, he's gambled it all again? What if he's heavily into addiction? And that spiral, I just remember standing there in this spiral, and here I am seeing myself in the future as a 60-year-old woman, homeless on the street with nothing, broken. And just this panic attack, finding it really hard to breathe. And it was nearly like a wave washed over and went, I can't continue to do this. I can't continue to live like this. This is not this is not helpful. And I still was thinking this isn't helpful for my husband or my kids. Still wasn't thinking about me. But that to me was like my line in the sand. I need to do something. And I was getting support through speech, like talk therapy, and that was going really well. I had a beautiful therapist who I was seeing. She supported me through my friend's trial and all of that sort of stuff too, because I had that as well. But it was probably then I started to do a little bit of, I guess, more holistic type work. And then about another year after that, I found the Centre for Healing and did a course called Going Deeper, which in my mind was, if I do this, I can fix my husband. He will be okay. I will be okay. No, I know now that that is, I'm lying to myself. You can't fix anybody else.
That's right.
And what was going on for me belonged to me, just like what was going on for him belongs to him. But when I did this course, it was all about self-identity, relationship to self, learning to understand why you show up the way you show up. And it was like something clicked in me. And then I went on and did root cause therapy and embodied processing. And root cause therapy was amazing, but embodied processing has been, I guess, like the big warm hug that has pulled me together and has brought me back to myself. And I now know that life will throw challenges, but I have this beautiful port within me that I can come to rest. So that learning how to regulate the nervous system. So if that version of me that had that letter of the bank knew how to calm herself, to like hold herself, to give herself reassurance that she will be okay, to know, focus on your breath, come back to your safe place. I feel like things maybe wouldn't have gone so far for me with my suffering, because it is a really hard time to go through big things. But when we have these beautiful tools to be able to soothe ourselves and calm the nervous system, we don't have to suffer as much. So healing for me has really allowed me to get to know me. And I think that's been the most beautiful thing. I realised that I had been playing out the role of a people pleaser for a lot of my life, going back to when I was 4 and my father died. And, we have that abandonment. There's something wrong with me. I just want to fit in. So I've got to do everything I can to make sure everybody else loves me. And I know now I don't need to do that. It's okay. I'm still a kind, gentle person, but I don't need to continue to put me and my needs first. Even my values, don't have to go to the back of the line anymore, because I know that I'm important too. That has been a dramatic shift. And the way that has impacted my relationships with my husband and my children, especially now because they're all, young adults in their 20s, has been such a gift. And like I mentioned, he, is addiction free these days. He's living a really happy, content life.
That's amazing.
A lot of that, yeah, and a lot of that has to do with this deep healing and just learning to be with ourselves and whatever comes up. It's okay to feel sad or angry, or to even, be disappointed or hurt. It's how we can be with it that really matters. I think that's probably the greatest gift that I've given myself, and probably the most beautiful thing about this healing, that real being able to be with me. Because then we're not trying to project or hurt other people, or we're not trying to control. I felt like I was doing that a lot with his recovery, and making threats and trying to manipulate situations. And it was all, if he's okay, I'm okay. So I've got to make him okay. And I had to let go of that control. And I could only do that once I understood why I was doing it, and I could be with that control and not have to act on it. Yeah, absolutely huge, this healing journey. And I think we're on it forever, but I feel now it shifts, as you would know, as you go through it and you get deeper, and that
It's like an
relationship to
onion.
yourself. yeah, it becomes more connected. You feel like there's a shift in it, and there's not an urgency for me anymore. I go, oh, that's interesting how I responded to that. There's more curiosity than I need to fix myself, so I feel okay.
Okay. And what advice would you give family members that are struggling with a loved one with addiction?
Number one thing is to give some of that love, that care, and that attention back to you, because I know we become extremely depleted. We become exhausted and overwhelmed. And there's a lot of fear too around addiction and what it means for us as a person. There's a lot of judgment in society. What it means for our loved one, there's quite often that fear: if I don't save them, I could lose them, they could die. And the truth is, you can't save them. And I know that sounds hard to hear, but we can't. And I know for myself and for people that I work with, the more that they've let go of trying to save, the more their loved one has started to recover. Because it's
Amazing.
almost like when we go, yeah, we're trying to save you. Obviously, there's something wrong with you. I have to save you. So they feel more shame. So then they reach for that vice more because I can't be with the shame. So start to give you some love and attention and find the thing that is going to help you feel safe. And I really am, anyone that works with me knows how much I love embodied processing, but especially that building of safety in the body so that we can be with things when they come up. So you're not like overwhelmed with these huge thoughts and feeling like the only thing that you can do is, micromanage your partner or your loved one, whether it's a child, a sibling, parent, whoever it is that you're in relationship with. We can't do that. It's just exhausting, and it just will start to make you feel resentful. And I always thought that that resentment was directed at my loved one and his addiction. But as I got to know it, was actually at me because I couldn't just let go. And I was, nearly fighting myself. And I was angry because I was always put last, but I was the one that was doing it. So we can
And
get
you'd
to know us and show up for us. That's amazing.
and you'd spoken about judgment. You would say that there's a stigma. People judge people with addictions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like the sad part about that is so many people are struggling alone because they don't want to be judged and they don't want to feel like people think that they've done something wrong or that they're less than worthy of getting support. And I know for me, it was like this duality going on. So I'm in a community where a lot of people knew about my friend getting murdered, and they knew me because I worked at a school. So they would be saying, "Oh, she's really sad," or "Oh, she looks devastated," and supporting me because they thought they knew about my friend, but none of them knew about my husband. It was nearly like of getting all this support, but no one knows what else is going on. No one knows that this is all going on the sidelines as well, unless they were close to us.
And
Um,
that's huge.
and even then, there was still judgment, even from people that are close, even if they don't mean it. And I feel like people want to. They were doing what I was doing to my husband. They want me to be okay, so they feel okay. So they're trying to fix things for me. So I had some unhelpful advice, like you just need to leave him, then you'll be okay. If you just walk away. And it's like, I can't abandon someone in their darkest hour. That's just not me. And it's fine if that is you. But for me, I couldn't just walk away. I had this thing of, what am I saying to my kids? Oh, dad's in the darkest place he's ever been in. We're just going to leave him. Couldn't do that. But I understand why people do it, and I don't hold any ill will. But at the time, it was that just added to the weight of, if you had cancer, you wouldn't tell me to leave. But
Right.
because it's addiction, and addiction seems like people choose it, or, he could just stop if he wanted to, he's selfish, all of that comes into play, and it's not true.
It's
It's
not true.
absolutely not true. No, but me at the time had no experience with addiction other than what I knew, their society tells me, that it's a person that's a criminal or a homeless person or an unsavory person. And the truth is, it's anybody and everybody.
And it's
So,
people that are
and
in
that,
pain,
yeah,
that they're hurting.
exactly. just trying to soothe themselves, trying to keep themselves alive in some ways. I've heard, people that have struggled with drug or alcohol addiction saying that alcohol kept me alive because I was in so much pain that it was the only thing that made me feel okay. And, once I started to hear that from people, it actually gives me chills hearing it. But once I started to hear that, I started to really understand. And, I said to my husband, when you were gambling, were you not thinking like, oh, we've only got $500 in the bank. I've just spent it all on the bet? He's like, no, because I just needed to feel okay. And he didn't really understand it until, I started doing all this work. And the relief for him, it was nearly like when I said to him one day, do you understand it now? And he was like, I do, but I'm a gambling addict. And I'm like, well, no, you're not. You're not a gambling addict. You're somebody who lived with a gambling addiction. You're not addiction because you are now, not gambling anymore. You're not, you were never, that was never you. It was a behavior. And like, I could almost see like him stand up taller as,
I
he
love that.
started to understand it. Yeah. So I think that's a really powerful thing for people too. If you have a loved one living with addiction, even try to see them as the person in addiction walking along beside them. Um, because we're allowed to feel hurt and angry and sad and all of those emotions about it, but directed at the addiction, not at your loved one if you can. And that's a lot more beneficial. Even, like I've had clients where we've done that in a session where it's been, they don't want to feel angry because they understand they've got compassion for their loved one, but said it's okay to feel angry. I've felt really angry at times because things have happened that have felt really heavy and hurtful. And we're allowed to feel like that. We just don't want to throw it at our loved one because that won't help. But we can throw it at addiction. People have even imagined like a big bottle of alcohol and they've just called it every name under the sun and then ended up smashing it just to get some of that anger out. And that's been hugely beneficial because as we know, what we block and suppress, it's nearly like having a poison in us. And it blocks
It is.
everything and then it becomes bigger and then all of a sudden we just explode and that's not helpful.
And
So
people
if
are
we
like,
can
where did that
process
come
it,
from?
yeah, and it's like, why am I angry about this? And it's like, well, it's all these other things trailing along behind it that you're actually angry about. And it's okay to be angry about them. Um, yeah, so that's been a really big, powerful thing in healing. I was just saying for embodied processing and what it has given me on a personal level, like eternally grateful. And then when I see it radiate out, especially to my family and the way that I can now parent, as we go through these stages of parenting where we have to let go a little bit and we've got to trust and let our kids make mistakes. And for them to know that mum can just be there and not judge or control or fix is huge for my kids. To have
That
my
presence.
children in their 20s, yeah, go, oh, mum, this has just happened. And it can be a heavy situation, but they feel safe enough to contact me. I don't know that that would have been there if I hadn't have done all of this beautiful healing work to be able to hold it in a healthy way.
And you just told us a huge story. How did that feel in your body as you were telling us?
I feel like there's been an evolution to this. So when I first started this, I remember I had to go to a talk therapist connected to, it's a group in Australia called Gambling Australia, and they give you support. But one of the conditions is, like, my husband had to go see a counsellor, I had to go and see one. Then they helped us out a little bit financially at the start, and we had like a financial counsellor come in because obviously gambling addiction creates a whole mess. And I remember going to this counsellor, I think I did 3 sessions with him. And on my second one, him actually saying, we're going to go through the day that this all happened. So I want you to walk me through it. And every now and then I'll say, where are you out of 10? And can you tell me? I was already at a 10 out of 10. I was vomiting every morning. Like, I'd get in the shower and vomit and vomit and vomit. I was like constantly had the shakes, you feel your body shaking. I was not connected to my body. I was just in survival mode. I remember trying to tell the story about, what had happened. And every now and then you go, where are you out of 10? And I'll just pick a number because I had no idea. I don't know what out of 10 means when I'm not connected to my body. And I don't think you really get it unless you know how to be with those sensations properly.
I understand.
And I remember walking out of there so heightened, driving home, which I probably shouldn't have, about a 30-minute drive, and just getting into my bed and sleeping for about 3 hours. I was absolutely exhausted. I was in complete distress and overwhelm. Whereas when I talk about it now, like I can feel my face going a little bit red, which for me is it can be a bit of a response. Can feel, my heart a little bit heavy because I'm so sad that we went through all of this still. I feel, especially for my children, I know what trauma can do, and we as a family have done our best to support them through this, but I know there's always residue. So when I tell this story, I think my heart hurts a bit for them, and I feel that, like sitting here now, I can, if I was to really tap into how the body feels, I can feel my heart's a little bit heavy. But otherwise, thankfully, because before I jumped on, I did a little bit of, breathing and calming and getting
Perfect.
myself prepared. I feel like that carries me. And when you probably can't see it, but when I feel myself, I have my hand resting sort of on my
That's
heart. That's
exactly.
where I anchor. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
like the resource, or one on the tummy. So it's nearly like holding yourself and going, "It's okay. I've got you. You're going to be all right."
It totally relaxes me. If I'm stressed, I just put my hand here and I'm not even thinking. I just find my hand here and I'm like, oh yes. And it's just soothing. It's an anchor and it's just
Yeah,
calms your nervous system.
yeah. It's like the body almost. If you can feel nearly your shoulders start to go. Oh, we don't have to hold on so tight. We can let go a bit. We're safe. Um, yeah. So in response to that is, like the heart, but having these tools to be able to hold myself through this, and also obviously having done a lot of work around it, still feel very connected to this story. It's not like I'm just speaking about something that happened to somebody and it doesn't matter. There is still a lot of connection.
And what advice do you have for people that are starting their healing journey?
I think the first thing is just to be really kind to you and to know that there's no need to be scared about what you will discover about yourself, because I find that people can think, I don't want to get to know me because what if I find things I don't like? And the truth is every part of us has a reason for being there, and it's always going to be playing a role that is there to support you and to help you, even if it doesn't serve you anymore. For example, I had this fear of abandonment, from when I lost my father, and I never even realised it was there, but it was the thing that was keeping me stuck as a people pleaser, of putting my needs last, but that resentment coming through. So once I met that, the shifts in me were dramatic, but I didn't meet it and go, oh gosh, how awful am I to be doing this? And it was more of a, oh wow, I really understand myself more deeply now, and compassion can start to come in. So I think understanding that getting to know you can be a beautiful journey if you keep it within those realms of being curious, of being compassionate and understanding towards yourself. And when we start to do this, if we have a loved one who's living with addiction, that compassion and understanding expands. And it can allow us then to see them and to see ourselves differently, which obviously impacts the whole relationship. I think too, I would add that talk therapy is extremely helpful and it has a role for everybody. But if you are doing that and you feel like you're not getting to really know what is going on for you, like the root of why you are the way you are, why things affect you the way they do, why you show up the way you do, and thinking about not just how everything looks, but how it feels, maybe go and find something that is more deep. Because healing to me is deeper than just talk. Like we were touching on before, that bringing in bodily sensations, because our body will remember everything. Our mind will not recall everything at that conscious level. And that to me has been the greatest impact of the healing for me, is when I've gone deep. And sometimes talk therapy, like I explained before, with that therapist has actually been more traumatic than helpful because we're reliving it without support, without knowing how to soothe and calm ourselves. Um, Whereas being able to sit here and tell you the story and have tools to hold myself with, completely different space. So that would be my number one thing is try to go deeper if you can and get support that will support the nervous system and support you more at that really held, safe level. And try to not feel bad about getting support for you. See the effects that it will have because it's not just about you when you do it, it will ripple out. That's probably been the thing. I don't have many regrets, but one of them is I wish I'd got support earlier because of the impact that it's had, not just on me, but on my family and our relationships, and how they now know that they can show up because I'm there unconditionally and I can hold stuff. So I think for us mums, especially, if you can't do it for you, do it for your family.
I agree
Because
wholeheartedly.
yeah, it will support all of you. That's probably my biggest things.
Well, thank you so much.
My business has come from obviously my whole lived experience with addiction and finding it really hard to get support as the loved one of someone who is living with addiction. And knowing that understanding addiction and trauma has been hugely pivotal in my healing and my husband's. And having these beautiful tools like being able to support the nervous system, being able to look at how we are showing up and how we are navigating not just addiction, but our own space and our own lives. So I currently obviously offer embodied processing sessions, but I have a beautiful Life Beyond Addiction program for loved ones to come in and to really connect to self. And it starts with building that safety within, and then we do everything from there. And these tools don't just help you navigate addiction, they help you navigate life. But more importantly, to cultivate this beautiful relationship to yourself. I'm extremely proud of it. Um, and I think I'm just trying to be who I needed, which gives me this beautiful foundation to stand upon as I deliver these programs and support people through this time.
Who you're called to be.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember saying to my therapist back in the day, something has to come out of this because how can you go through all of this and not necessarily a purpose, but nearly like that silver lining to hang on to. And this to me is what it is, being who I
100%.
needed and being who I need too. I'm being who I need to be now, not who I have to be.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to talk about all of this. It's such a beautiful platform that you're holding, and I hope that people continue to tune in and learn all about trauma and healing and how we can support ourselves in such beautiful ways.
Thank you.